Hello, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we will be talking about 360 deals. A lot of you guys requested I make this video from my artists who have fought their labels video, so of course check that out if you haven't. But anyway, I feel like whenever we hear the term 360 deal, we automatically are like, oh no, it's a wrap for that artist. What were they thinking? And we assume the worst because typically we only hear about 360 deals in cases where they go wrong or where the artist is being taken advantage of. And of course now because of this, there's this stigma that the 360 deal is the absolute worst contract you can sign in the music industry. And you know, maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but in today's video, I do want to approach the topic from a more objective standpoint and explain to you guys what a 360 deal is more so. And of course, I'll have to give some cases where they didn't work out for people, but I also do want to share some cases where they did work out. So let's just go ahead and get into talking about 360 deals. A 360 deal is an exclusive contract usually between a record label and artist. The 360 in the name is short for 360 degrees and comes from the label taking a cut from nearly if not everything the artist does. So the label wouldn't just get a cut from the artist's music, but also any merchandise, endorsements, appearances, concerts, and even the artist's publishing. Traditionally, the label would only make money from music an artist sold, but see nothing from any movies, endorsements, or other revenue the artist brought in. An exception to this rule, of course, were cases where the labels owned an artist's name or likeness, which definitely did happen at times. There's no one way that a 360 deal looks, only the fact that the label has access to several of the artist's revenue streams. This is so that the label can recoup the money spent on the artist as quickly as possible and increase the likelihood of that happening at all. Labels also give artists advances, which are repaid through the 360 deal. The advance is money for artists to live off of while producing their album. But it's more of a loan and is not really money for the artist to keep forever. Advances typically range from about $50,000 to $350,000 and depend on how much the label thinks they can make back from that artist and how much they intend to spend promoting. Because labels have several ways to recoup the money put in and usually put more money into the artist over time, advances from 360 deals are often bigger. Aside from the advance, labels pay for the artist's studio time, development, producers, promotion, and shooting videos, among several other things. 360 deals rose in popularity in the 2000s as album sales declined significantly. According to the RIAA, recorded music revenue fell 36% from $14.6 billion in 1999 down to $9.4 billion in 2006. In 2003, SoundScan reported that CD sales made up 93% of music sales. That number plummeted to 27% by 2007, of course due to a rise in digital sales as well as piracy, which was increasingly becoming a problem. Since record sales were no longer enough to make a sizable profit, labels started looking for other avenues to make money from their artists. And inherently, 360 deals aren't bad, as in theory this money would keep the labels running and able to support their artists. But of course, in practice, this could be an entirely different story. 360 deals are more typical of mainstream artists, but these deals are most often offered to artists who are unknown at the time of signing. Yet, because of the sheer amount of money that's pumped into these artists, and the label's desire to have them everywhere to keep them profitable, these artists do often become household names. Since the label has a hand in marketing the artist outside of the album, they're able to arrange other things like larger tours, merch, and ringtones, and often bundle these things together, which does increase fans' likelihood of buying them. This in turn generates more revenue for the label and hopefully the artist. In cases where 360 deals work in an artist's favor, after the label has made their money back, the artist may be entitled up to 30% royalties from future album sales. This is potentially double the standard outside of 360 deals, which is about 15%. The earliest form of what became known as a 360 deal dates back to 2002. The deal was between English singer Robbie Williams and EMI Records and was meant to promote Williams in the American market. Williams' rep called the deal a multi-platform approach to the respective elements of recording, live work, film, and television. In their coverage, BBC noted that EMI would take an unusually high share of profit from touring, publishing profits, and merchandise, areas where the artists themselves usually make more money. The £80 million or $100 million deal was said at the time to be the biggest record deal in the UK. It was the second biggest of all time, just behind Michael Jackson's deal with Sony in 1991. The deal with Williams was an investment for EMI, who hoped pushing him in the States would bring the label, whose shares were down at the time, even more profit. Around the time Williams secured the deal, EMI had to cut over 1,200 jobs due to several unsuccessful releases in the previous years. The label had also recently paid Mariah Carey £38 million to end her contract after Glitter underperformed. Despite the landmark record deal, Williams left EMI for Universal in 2011 after fulfilling his contract. A quote from a source reads, "Williams was fed up with EMI. He wasn't feeling the love, and with the company's sale and constantly rotating management structure, there's something to be said for stability." Paramore were actually the first artist to receive an official 360 deal. The band signed the deal in 2006 with Atlantic Records and the label fueled by ramen. At the time, the band was still very young and still figuring out their sound. Lead singer Hayley Williams said the 360 deal gave Paramore time and leniency to work on their music and grow outside of the mainstream spotlight. Because of this, the band didn't even attempt to put singles from their debut album on the radio and instead were working on garnering more organic support. They saved the more public promotions for their sophomore album, Riot. In a New York Times article on the deal, author Jeff Leeds said about the agreement, "Paramore is a promising example of a rising new model for developing talent, one in which artists share not just revenue from their album sales, but concert, merchandise, and other earnings with their label in exchange for more comprehensive career support." As the title of the article suggests, 360 deals often more or less turn artists into products, as the label is looking for ways to monetize them on all fronts. With a 360 deal, record labels don't have to solely rely on artists having a few mega hits that garnered enough sales for the label to profit. If the artist was bringing in money from tours, endorsements, and merchandise, that would greatly supplement the album sales. In this sense, it would behoove an artist and label for them to steadily grow a loyal fan base and incrementally make the artist bigger and bigger, rather than working on pumping out singles that might do well upon their release and then fall off the charts soon after. Craig Kallman, chairman of Atlantic Records, said about this, "If we weren't so mono-focused on the selling of recorded music, we could actually take a really holistic approach to the development of an artist's brand. What's the healthiest decision to be made? Not just to sell the CD, but to build the artist's fan base." 360 deals really changed the way a lot of labels approach talent acquisition. Instead of A&R reps only scouting artists who could sell albums, there is now a desire to sign talent who a brand could be built around, and they could sell more products more than music. In the aforementioned New York Times article, Leeds used the example of rappers. He was writing back in 2007 when hip-hop tours were less profitable and less frequent than they are now. However, as Leeds pointed out, a lot of these rappers were prime candidates for selling products like jewelry, sneakers, and other apparel. In that sense, it might be more profitable for the artists and labels to secure a lucrative sneaker endorsement or something similar for a rapper rather than send them on tour. This is why it's important for the label and artist to build a genuine fan base, because loyal fans are more likely to purchase items outside of the artist's music. Additionally, it was also a way for labels to make money even if someone isn't a fan of an artist, but is a fan of a product they sell or endorse that is part of the 360 deal. Leeds said, "Though the concept could be applied to anyone, even fleetingly famous pop stars, the real potential of a 360 style pack does not emerge unless an act is popular long enough to attract either loyal fans who reliably buy tickets or attention from business partners who might help market spin-offs like a fragrance or sneaker line." Another group considered to have been one of the first to sign a 360 deal were actually the Pussycat Dolls, who signed through Interscope in August of 2005. Initially, they were a burlesque dance group formed in 1995 by choreographer Robin Anson. Eventually, Robin Anson signed on with Interscope, and the Pussycat Dolls then split profits between Anson and the joint company A&M Interscope. After some lineup changes, the Pussycat Dolls were turned into a recording group as well, though a burlesque group remained in Vegas. The majority of their performances were at the Pussycat Dolls Lounge, which was inside of Caesar's Palace. It was estimated these performances brought in over $1 million a month, with profits being split between Robin Anson, A&M Interscope, and the nightclub operator and his company. The Pussycat Dolls are a great example of a group that became a brand outside of their music, likely because they already had been, and of course Interscope profited very well from that. In 2006, a merchandising agreement through Interscope allowed Hasbro to create a line of dolls inspired by the Pussycat Dolls, which were meant to be marketed to children. However, of course, due to the backlash, this never came to fruition. But that same year, the Pussycat Dolls secured a deal with Stila Cosmetics to create their own makeup line. In addition, they also had a short-lived reality show in 2007 called The Search for the Next Doll that had decent ratings despite poor critic reviews. In 2008, Robin Anson released a lingerie line inspired by the Pussycat Dolls, which was a joint venture with the Canadian retailer La Senza. That year, she also put out a series of Pussycat Dolls workout videos, with Interscope seeing a cut of both products. At the time, the Pussycat Dolls were touted as the potential poster girls of the new direction of the music industry, in which artists would forfeit more money to their labels, but with the hopes of bringing in more money. Back in 2005, before many of these deals were even made, their manager Jeff Haddad hinted at them saying, "One of the most relevant words in the music business today is ancillary. It's no longer strictly music." Aside from record labels, music promoters were looking to get in on 360 deals as well. In 2007, Madonna left Warner Music Group after 24 years to sign a $120 million 10-year contract with Live Nation. Madonna said of the deal, "The paradigm in the music business has shifted, and as an artist and a businesswoman, I have to move with that shift. For the first time in my career, the way that my music can reach my fans is unlimited. I've never wanted to think in a limited way, and with this new partnership, the possibilities are endless." Her deal with Live Nation made Madonna the first artist to sign to their Artist Nation division. The global partnership included all of Madonna's future music and related ventures like albums, tours, and merchandise. According to the Wall Street Journal, Madonna would be paid in cash and stocks, and Live Nation would distribute 3 albums, promote concert tours, sell merchandise, and license Madonna's name. And of course, aside from everything else, they would receive a cut of her physical and digital music sales. Madonna would receive a $17 million advance for each album. The deal was an attempt to unite everything having to deal with the Madonna brand under one entity in order to maximize profit margins. Michael Rapino, Live Nation's CEO, was confident about their new partnership and business model. He said of the deal, "The real story here is while everyone's talking 360, we were quietly building the services to do it right. We've spent a considerable amount of resources building this Artist Nation division first and then going after artists second. Madonna would not have done a 360 deal with us just because of our touring capability. We had to prove to her and others that we have been working on and built a very good execution capacity at Artist Nation." At the time, several financial analysts were wary of the deal and whether Madonna had the power to bring Live Nation any remarkable profit. Similarly, they noted the huge risk promoters were taking, trying to get into a side of music that had previously been handled by record labels. But because of the declining physical sales of music, a lot of record labels didn't have the leverage that they used to, and artists sought more attractive deals elsewhere. Even if Live Nation didn't recoup all of the money spent on the deal with Madonna, having an artist of Madonna's caliber would lend Live Nation valuable credibility that would make other artists more inclined to sign to the Artist Nation division. And regardless, in their fledgling days, Live Nation did intend for artists to still sign with a traditional record label. In 2011, Madonna signed a 3-album deal with Interscope, which would work jointly with her deal with Live Nation. During her deal with Interscope and Live Nation, Madonna put out her most recent albums, MDNA, Rebel Heart, and Madam X. In addition, she did the Super Bowl halftime show in 2012 and embarked on several tours, including the Sticky and Sweet Tour, the MDNA Tour, and the Rebel Heart Tour. However, in 2020, Madonna left Interscope, returning to Warner Music in 2021. The global partnership also included the movement of her 3 Interscope albums to the Warner catalog. Madonna's most recent tour, the Celebration Tour, is set to kick off this July. It's intended to be a retrospective of her music career, which has spanned over 4 decades at this point. However, due to some health complications Madonna has experienced recently, the tour has been postponed, but it is still scheduled to take place. In 2008, Jay-Z also signed with Live Nation, inking a $150 million 10-year deal. This was bigger than Madonna's deal with Live Nation, as well as U2's, who signed a 12-year deal with them. However, U2's deal didn't include publishing, and they continued releasing music through Universal. The 3-album 10-year deal gave Jay $10 million per album, $20 million for other rights including publishing and licensing, and $25 million to finance his external acquisitions and investments. The partnership also created Roc Nation LLC, a joint entertainment venture between Live Nation and Jay-Z. Through Roc Nation, the 360 deal would put Jay on the trajectory to achieve billionaire status. The Times noted that while the partnership was impressive, Jay-Z's record sales had been on the decline since 2003. In their coverage, MTV pointed out that while that might be true, Jay was also at the helm of Rockefeller Records, Rockaware, and the 4040 nightclubs. So regardless of record sales, he'd proven himself as an entrepreneur. In addition, Jay's deal with Live Nation helped globalize hip-hop touring, allowing other rappers to follow suit with profitable international tours. In 2017, Jay-Z signed a new $200 million deal with Live Nation. The deal again secured Live Nation as the producer and promoter for all of his worldwide tours. This deal didn't include Roc Nation, but Jay and Live Nation remained partners. Jay said about the deal, Live Nation and I entered uncharted territory in 2008. Over 9 years, we've traveled the world producing historic music experiences. Michael Rapino is an industry visionary, and this renewed partnership is a testament to our long-standing relationship and the talented individuals at Live Nation. For the next 10 years, we will continue redefining the live event landscape. In addition, this new deal would not include the rights to Jay-Z's recording or his publishing. Jay-Z used a 360 model with the artists he signed to Roc Nation, the first of which was J. Cole, who signed in 2009. J. Cole explained the deal saying, "Basically, 360 deals means the label gets a piece of everything. Back in the days, it was sacred that a label could not touch your show money. Worst things worse, if a label wasn't putting you out, you could always eat off of your show money, your merchandising, anything that your name is on, they couldn't touch. But now that albums aren't selling, labels need a way to make money because they're losing money. On the other hand, you want that because if I'm an artist on Def Jam and my album didn't sell that well, back in the day a label was so quick to shelve you. So quick to be like, fuck you, we can't make any money off you no more, your album costs too much, blah blah blah. But now if he had a 360 deal, the label will say, alright, at least let's throw him on tour, let's at least make money off of him like that. And now you're eating and the label's eating and everyone's happy." With Jay-Z's endorsement, J. Cole quickly rose to prominence, being named one of XXL Magazine's top 10 freshmen. A decade later in 2020, J. Cole would admit he never actually read his Roc Nation contract prior to signing. He'd been so eager to sign with Jay-Z, who Cole said felt almost like a mythical figure to him. With his own imprint Dreamville, J. Cole and manager Ibrahim Hamad sought to also use the 360 model, but alter it a little in favor of their artists. Their intended model was that the bigger Dreamville artists grew, the lesser of a percentage they would take. Another important name in 360 deals is Lyor Cohen, who's been working to promote rap artists since the 80s. Some have even called the exec one of the forefathers or founding fathers of the 360 deal. Others have called Cohen one of hip-hop's biggest supervillains. Long aware of the power and profit of an endorsement, Cohen negotiated the first in hip-hop, which was a partnership between Run DMC and Adidas. After promoting Run DMC, Cohen later worked at Rush Productions, managing artists like LL Cool J and Public Enemy. After that, Cohen ran Def Jam, later becoming the co-president of the Island Def Jam Music Group. Cohen left Def Jam in 2004 for Warner Music Group, later helping to negotiate a licensing deal between Warner artists and YouTube. The deal, which was finalized in 2006, was the first deal of its kind made by a major label. In 2011, Cohen negotiated a deal to license the Warner Music Group roster out to Spotify, creating another potential revenue stream for labels and artists. In 2012, Cohen co-founded the record label 300 Entertainment, which had a distribution deal through Atlantic. For years, 300 was one of the most successful independent labels in the country. 300 assigned several artists to 360 deals, including Fetty Wap, the Migos, Young Thug, and Megan Thee Stallion. In 2021, 300 was acquired by their parent company, Warner Music Group. When the Migos signed a marketing and distribution deal with 300 in 2014, they assumed the label would easily take them to new heights. However, their short time at the label resulted in many disagreements, and the Migos left 300 in 2016. One of the sources of their many arguments was their song Look at My Dad. Despite the 2015 song being a viral smash for the group, conflicts with 300 prevented them from being able to sell the song on iTunes and properly profit. They did, however, release the mixtape that Look at My Dab is on, which is called Back to the Bando, through their other label, Quality Control. The label, founded by Kevin Coach K. Lee and Pierre P. Thomas in 2013, is currently home to artists including Lil Baby, Lil Yachty, and the City Girls. Lil Yachty famously did an interview with Joe Budden in which he appeared to not know the terms of his contract.
Are you in a 360?
I don't know.
No, don't tell me you don't know. You know if you in the 360.
Bro, I don't really...
Are they getting a cut of that Sprite commercial check?
I don't know.
You know, man.
I know I got an amazing deal. I have an amazing attorney.
But you don't know if you're in the 360. If you don't know you're in the 360, you're in the 360. It's like one of those.
Okay.
You know what a 360
I know I recouped my
right?
deal.
I mean, you and Coach, you and Coach probably had that conversation, right?
You do know what a 360 deal is, though.
I heard about it.
I'd like to know your opinion on it. Like me sees Yachty in a Sprite commercial and sees Yachty in a Target commercial, I say to myself, the label is really doing, again, the label, I don't know if that's QC Capital, whoever, is doing an amazing job cashing in on their 360. Clearly there's some marketing appeal that this kid has that transcends hip hop and the label is taking full advantage of it.
And over the years, with releases like Bad and Bougie, the Migos helped raise the status and popularity of the label. Things started to fall apart between the Migos and Quality Control around 2020, with the group additionally accusing their lawyer of financial malpractice, alleging they'd been cheated out of millions. Their lawyer, Damian Granderson, was also a lawyer for Quality Control. To exemplify this, before the lawsuit even began, the Migos had been on The Breakfast Club for an interview. DJ Envy brought up a 2013 performance the group had done for him for just $3,000. Pierre and Coach K allegedly claimed the shows for promo, to which Charlemagne implied that Coach K and the label had probably pocketed the money, allegedly, as the Migos had been under the impression that they'd been performing for free. After court documents hit the internet, it was revealed that the Migos were in a so-called lifetime 360 deal with Quality Control. Part of the Migos lawsuit alleged. Worse yet, the Quality Control Music Migos agreement does not allow Migos to terminate their arrangement as long as Quality Control Music obtains successive record deals within 15 months. Given that the Quality Control Music and Migos agreement also gives Quality Control Music the right to enter into distribution agreements with any record label it chooses on any terms it chooses, the agreement effectively gives Quality Control Music the choice to extend the term forever. If true, this perfectly exemplifies why some refer to the 360 deal as a slave contract, because in the worst cases, they do have the potential to keep an artist chained to the label in perpetuity and taking money from everything they ever do. Later on in the year, Quavo posted on Instagram what was interpreted as an announcement that things had been resolved between the Migos and Quality Control. However, as of last year, Offset was embroiled in another battle with the label, claiming as per 2021 settlement, Quality Control had no ownership over any music he recorded as a solo artist. Another rapper who's been very vocal about the negative sides of signing a 360 deal is Waka Flocka. For years now, he's talked about how he was exploited by his deals with Atlantic and Warner Brothers. Waka was one of the first artists signed to 1017 Records, which is Gucci Mane's label. The label is owned by Warner Music Group and distributes through Atlantic. All the way back in 2010, Walker released Fuck This Industry, a song detailing several of his grievances. Part of the first verse reads, "Make sure your lawyer know what he's doing, man. He signed contracts right. Cause Holmes might sign you on a fucked up deal thinking that shit real. Don't get a 360, that shit ain't 100. By 2015, Walker was claiming Atlantic wouldn't allow him to release his album Flockavelli 2, nor would they let him buy himself out of his contract. In 2020, he went on Drink Champs and explained how his 360 deal hindered his career for years to come. Like most, Waka's 360 deal included his publishing, which was through Warner Chappell. Waka claimed he wasn't seeing royalties from music streams, YouTube, or any time music was licensed on TV or other video games. Since he wasn't a commitment deal with Warner Chappell, the publishing company could essentially control what music he could release, and at the very least whether those songs would count towards honoring his deal. I do want to include a clip of an artist and creator named Dorian Group 82 who explains this so well.
What Waka did is he signed a record deal, so his sound recordings under Warner Brothers Music, and he signed a publishing deal under Warner Chappell, essentially the publishing arm of Warner Brothers. What a publishing deal is, let's take Don't Sleep Again for example. The song fucking knocks. They see y'all listen to it, it got millions of streams, people connecting with it, they see people that done the dance videos. Hey Dorian, we like that song. We want to get that song placed in TV, in movies, and in video games. In exchange for us doing that, we're gonna own a percentage of the publishing. And every time you get synced in a movie or a TV or a video game, we're gonna give you a check up front in advance. We're gonna give you publishing that will recoup based on how we shop it. And you'll be able to collect royalties because you own the sound recording. Sounds like a win-win, right? If you do a one-off with the publishing for a song that's already bubbling, it is a win-win. But they don't do the one-offs. What Waka just said right here, they had him in a commitment deal. That means, hey Dorian, Don't Sleep fucking knocks. We want to get the publishing on that, but we not only get Don't Sleep, you have to commit to giving us at least 15 commercially viable records a year that we can shop for syncs. How do we decide what's commercially viable? It's up to us.
By 2016, Waka was no longer with Atlantic, which he celebrated on social media. In the meantime, he had been touring nonstop to promote his music and likely to bring in some money. And then in 2018, Waka claimed to have found out he hadn't been paid for about 65% of his music sales and again cautioned against signing a recording contract. To this day, he's released several mixtapes rather frequently, but hasn't put out a studio album since 2012. Lupe Fiasco was another alleged victim of the 360 deal, albeit in a different way. He claimed that Atlantic shelved his album Lasers, which was eventually released in 2011 because he refused to sign a 360 deal. Years later, he revealed that he even offered to relent and sign the deal if Lyor Cohen would eventually give him his masters in exchange. When Cohen rejected the bargain, Fiasco claimed it was implied his album would not be promoted if he didn't sign the 360 deal regardless, at which point Fiasco said he knew his career was basically over. In 2016, Wiz Kahlifa sued his manager and his former label, Rostrum Records, over a 360 deal he signed at the age of 17. According to an article published in Revolt, Wiz alleged the label entered him into deals with Warner Brothers and Atlantic that benefited the label at his expense and kept information from him. In Wiz's lawsuit, he alleged that while signed to the 360 deal, Rostrum and his founder Benji Grinberg never disclosed any alternative agreements that could have benefited him more. Instead, Wiz was stuck in a deal the suit claimed reached for more than a decade into virtually every aspect of his professional life. Grinberg also acted as a manager to Wiz Khalifa from 2004 to 2014. Alex Weingarten, Wiz's attorney, said about the case, "An artist's most trusted advisor is his or her personal manager. Generally, nothing good comes out when the manager decides to go into business against his artist. Unfortunately, that is the case here." Under the California Labor Code, Wiz had a case to exit the 360 deal because of their 7-year rule. The rule states, a personal service employment contract may not be enforced for a period exceeding 7 years. Wiz sought over $1 million in damages, yet Rostrum countersued him for unpaid fees on his end. As per Wiz's contract, Rostrum was entitled to 15% of his touring and music royalties. The lawsuits were settled the following year in 2017, and a joint statement was put out saying both parties were eager to put the issues behind them. Over the years, 360 deals have developed an increasingly bad stigma due to so many artists speaking out about their labels exploiting them or otherwise not honoring the terms of their contracts. Many do try to warn young and hungry artists against essentially signing their lives away after being enticed by a large advance and often empty promises from the label. We can look at Meg Thee Stallion's ongoing battle with 1501, which you can hear more about in my video on artists' label conflicts. We can also look to Mac DeMarco, who on the eve of his first release through his imprint in 2019, he reflected on some of the tough lessons he'd learned on the journey. In an interview with Billboard, he made a statement about 360 deals, which he told Billboard to make sure they published. He said, "Do not sign a 360 deal. I don't care how much money they're offering you, don't take it. It's an awful, awful idea. It's a long time, a really long time, and they own your image. They take money from your merch on tour, nobody should touch that. I didn't know that some bands don't own their merch, which to me is like straight up you're being robbed. You can make money selling merch at shows, so it's good if you own it. Thumbs up bonus for you. Don't give anybody that merch money or your show money. They're not on the stage and they're probably not even in the city you're playing. Forget about it." Even more so than in the 2000s, record label leverage is dwindling. This is of course largely due to the prominence in social media, which allows artists to create and market their music without a label as an intermediary. But this doesn't necessarily mean that music sales are suffering the way that they did in the 2000s. Sales of physical music have plummeted, but streaming is bringing in more profits than ever. According to the RIAA, record labels' revenue grew 124% from $6.7 billion in 2014 to $15 billion in 2021. $10.9 billion of that revenue is from Spotify alone. Lyor Cohen, who left 300 in 2016, has worked for Google as YouTube's global head of music ever since. Cohen has decided to lean into social media's popularity in music, saying that artists should play the game as well, especially because of the promotion YouTube and other platforms can bring. In a 2022 interview with GQ, Cohen boasted that in the 12 months preceding the interview, YouTube paid over $6 billion back into the music industry through licensing deals. But still, it is important to mention that artists have been very vocal about how little in royalties they receive from streaming platforms, especially compared to physical album sales. And as another reminder, Cohen negotiated some of the earliest music licensing deals for YouTube and Spotify, and due to a lot of these artists being in 360 deals that took large portions of their publishing, they didn't see a lot of these royalties. So money going back into the music industry does not always mean that that money is going back to the artist. Despite the music industry transforming once again as it did at the turn of the century, several labels are still using 360 deals as their go-to contract. In a 2022 article published in Billboard, author Glenn Peoples acknowledged that while many labels are still using the 360 model, they're often trying to give artists better terms. Since many artists and their management understand they have a better chance than ever at making it independently, labels have become more lenient to increase hopes of signing these artists at all. This means that artists and their attorneys can often negotiate for certain revenue streams to not be touched by the label, and for the label to receive lower cuts of what is touched. In addition, they might set a threshold where the label can only touch that revenue if it exceeds a preset amount. Peoples gives an example saying, "A label that might have taken 20% of all non-recorded music revenue in years past would now take just 5% or 10% above a threshold of, say, $500,000. Another positive, Peoples notes, is that often artists can negotiate to receive their masters sooner, usually after a predetermined period of time that will eliminate all the gray areas and surprises later on down the line. Many labels are also offering bigger advances to attract artists, as well as increasing the support they provide in order to make signing worth it. And still, a lot of these artists maintain that while a major label or even a large independent label can definitely help, the extra push in marketing and things of the like aren't necessarily worth even a modified 360 deal. For this reason, several prefer to remain completely independent with a smaller independent label that won't sign them to a 360, or if they do sign with a major label, just not signing a 360 deal at all. A prime example of this is Ice Spice, as the news of her not signing a 360 deal was used as an example of the industry changing in a positive direction. Currently, she's signed with the indie label 10,000 Projects as well as the major label Capitol Records, but she still owns her masters and her publishing. Additionally, Ice Spice was given full creative control of her music. Her manager, James Roseman Jr., said they released Munch independently and then used the leverage from its virality to negotiate with 10,000 and Capitol. From his experience in the industry, as well as his father's experience, Roseman knew that several 360 deals and other deals would come Ice Spice's way, but they'd get the best deal if they went out and negotiated themselves. This does send a hopeful message to those coming up in the industry, as years ago we would have more likely heard that someone who rose to fame as quickly as Ice Spice did was trapped in a bad contract like a 360 deal for years and years to come. It's also a reminder it's important to go into a negotiation with a manager that has your best interest at heart and with clear terms that you're unwilling to sacrifice. So that is a little bit more about 360 deals for you guys. Definitely let me know your thoughts about it down below. You know, I can't fully say that they're bad. I don't know if I personally would sign a 360 deal. So maybe, yeah, whatever. Maybe I'm contradicting myself. Because, you know, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I feel like if you're not okay with taking that gamble, you might want to shy away from signing a 360 deal. Down in the comments, let me know if you would sign a 360 deal. I don't think I would, but you know, let me know what you think. It's about you today. Let me know. As always, thank you so very much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can stick around for more. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitter. That way you can keep up with me there. And if you'd like to become a channel member, the link is in the description of the video. Again, thank you so very much for watching. I love you so very much, and I will see you so very soon. Bye-bye.